Right.
Hello.
Good morning or good evening, everybody. It's so good to see you all, and thank you for being here today for the 2025 ELP Intern Showcase. So today we're going to be hearing from three ELP interns for the 2024-2025 year. They're going to be sharing about their work, their languages, their communities, and what they've been working on here at ELP. So just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. First of all, you will see some participation protocols in the chat shortly, but just a quick reminder, this is a space to support each other in our language work. So please be respectful and kind in your comments. If anybody's being disruptive, they will be removed. We also really encourage y'all to share your thoughts in the chat. We will have time for question and answers at the end. But in the meantime, please share in the chat where you're joining us from, any greetings you have for everybody else, and any questions you have for the interns, and then we'll come to them at the end. And finally, we will be hosting more events like this going forward, so we really encourage all of you to stay in touch with the LP, come to other events, and share about what you are all doing in your own communities as well. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Riathung, who will be sharing first about his work, his community, and what he's been doing at ELP.
Thank you, Anna, for opening the space and to ELP for giving this platform for me to be able to share what I've been doing since I joined Endangered Language uh, project as an intern with storytelling and communication starting September 2024 till this month, uh, March 2025. And to get started, I would just like to, uh, you know, thank everyone for logging in. So if Anna, if you could help me put up the PPT, thank you. Yeah. So I will start with myself, my introduction. I am Riathung, and I come from the state of Nagaland, which is in the easternmost region of India. And our people are known as Nagas, and I'm from the Lotha Naga community. The Naga people today reside in the Nagaland state of India, as well as the other neighboring regions and the northwestern part of Myanmar. Uh, that is about me. And honestly, when I was initially coming into work as a storyteller communication with ELP, I was a bit lost to see, what I can really do because there were so much things I wanted to do. But then I couldn't figure out where to start. But luckily, one of the webinars that was hosted by ELP, which was supported by Anna as well, and many others within the ELP. There was one by the name of Dr. Solomon. He was from the University of Hawaii, and he posed a question during one of the language documentation webinar, which was I asked him, we were talking about birds, and suddenly I I came to realize that the hornbill bird, which is a revered bird across the Nagas, which was something that I wasn't very much sure about its story, because I somehow felt that I didn't know its name, the name of the hornbill in its own language. So that got me thinking, because then I realized I asked some couple of friends from our own community what is it called, and they had little or no clue about it. So then that was the first task of me to really go into the numerous communities within the Nagas. Nagas are 3 to 4 dozens of communities speaking various multiple languages, with the root being Tibeto-Burman roots. So then it took me back to my home, my home state, which is around more than 1,000 miles from where I stay. So I flew over there and I decided to engage with my own people to figure out if they really know the name of the hornbill, which is a revered ancestral revered bird among many Naga communities. So that was how it all started. And if Anna, if you could hop on to the next slide.
Yes, then let me reshare so we can hear the audio. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Ngalai mana hanlom moko
Hada ngalai mana toikap, hada hanjini shwaba pum represent ngai yong shini ba.
hampung ya ba hornbill uga uang senyeknya ba.
Thank you. So this was one of the many groups I tried to converse with them because, as I've mentioned, Nagas were around 3 to 4 dozen communities and within border and outside the borders. So then I realized that most within the communities were forgetting the name of the sacred bird, the festival of which is celebrated every year. It's called the Hornbill Festival International. It's gone global. However, I realized that through that there are so many things to do in regards to that. So that took me to not just trying to discover things within my community in aspects of language and culture and uh, trying to preserve and trying to learn some aspects of the culture to safeguard it for the future generations because I knew that many like me were forgetting the things which are meant in our culture. And then it took me to my native village, which I visited after a span of almost 2 decades to learn some certain aspects of culture with the culture. Some are, losing, and with it, the language are also slowly vanishing because we are not using that certain aspect of the culture due to the coming of religion and modern education, global education as well. So just a couple of slides, and then we can go from there. If you could one.
Ilai outside piningo, chai ila hornbill ze ten moza de zaro, chai ila our ze language ze mungsen, de chai zhongli liu.
Thank you. If you could hop on to the last slide on the PPT. Thank you. So this is the village where I was born. This is my maternal place. So I grew around here, just jumping around here, and then sooner I migrated just for better opportunities in life. So yeah, we can close it now. Thank you. And yes, so with that being said, well, there are many things to say, but with the time that I have, I'll try to wrap it up. So with ELP, I was able to discover the aspects of storytelling and to realize the power of digital storytelling because I come from a culture where storytelling is ingrained. I remember as a small boy, sitting around a fireplace in the winter because in winter the temperature goes down to 2 or 3 degrees. So I'll sit down with my clan uncle near a fireplace and my other siblings. So we will hear stories upon stories of folklores and myths, and that fascinated me. Just the words playing out of some an elder's mouth, and I could just imagine the tigers, the spirits coming out alive. So um, I see myself, ALP opened up this whole world for me to see the aspect of how story can be utilized in many aspects, digital aspects and online aspects as well. So I within this short duration, I was trying to learn the aspects of storytelling through creating video, through story center, and so much, and through use of uh, digital storytelling through Canva. And I was really trying to, I'm really liking it. So uh, in one of the story skill sharing session, I shared about storytelling skills. And this is what I'll say, that stories are not the ending. These are stories are beginning of conversation. So I would like to wrap up in that, and I've prepared a small video. If it's ready with Anna, we could go ahead and play it, and uh, I'll be done with that. Thank you. Enjoy the video.
Hello, I am Riathung and I am from the Nagaland state in the easternmost region of India. I belong to the Lotha Naga community. We have always called ourselves Kyong, meaning people, human or man. The language I speak is also classified today as endangered languages under UNESCO Endangered Language List. And in fact, many dozen of Naga languages are classified as endangered. For my people, changes begin in our culture, language, tradition, and societies with the arrival of British explorers and US missionaries in the mid-19th century. Today, in many Naga areas and Nagaland, English is spoken as the official language along with the 3-4 dozens of Naga languages, and we are already swamped by the dominant languages too. Given the circumstances, abrupt changes have resulted in conflict of identity, cultures, languages, and erosion of the society itself. My only vision for my land and its people is to believe and to initiate the reclaiming of our identity, culture, languages, narratives, and the rights to decide who we be. Despite the giants of globalization at our doorsteps, we are here to stay. A people unanswered, of blood and tears, of a far frontier, remote, of military and insurgency, of drugs and weapons. With guns and roses we lead our celebrations and a funeral. Injustice, a peace that never came, and a recent brush with the Patal Lok, underworld. These words have been in brief the many descriptions of the region I come from, a Naga from Nagaland. Niha ete kyonke, meaning if you are a people, a man, a human. This is how someone from my own Kyong Naga community identify ourselves, who today number approximately 200,000. I sought to relearn my Kyong as I grew outside the community. So in my quest of answers, healing, acceptance, and belonging. In my years and time I spent on traveling, reading, researching, and connecting, I realized many of the words that I spoke were related to people from the Amdo Kham region of Tibet nation, down to the valleys of Ladakh, where Alexander once reached in ancient times. My culture even ties down to the Dayak people of Borneo Island, who dance and revere to the hornbill like we still do in these regions. My people's history, tales, and languages are only being questioned now. Few that we are, despite the many uncertainties we have shown, we are here to stay. Let me read you a poem from my region. Tsungongalo nina angao, voro china njoli oken ntenala, osi terachi oram nanga. Ana pyochi asate, njoli jukfu chilo ongo mvansia, osi otongo limo chang. Osi Singraka Jo Kulola To Ni Wongkyu. A Zoyo. Zongongalo. Nina Kuteng Emhenje Jina. Bozoe Nkam Kateng. Ndio Esatula To Angalo Ruana. Jiteng Jo. Ana Janlan Chevmek.
Thank you, Anna, for highlighting that. I think if there are any questions, I can take that later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Riathung. And next up, please, again, we welcome your questions and comments for Riathung. Please put them in the chat and we'll come back to questions at the end. But next up, we will be hearing from Elwin Huaman.
All right, I will share my screen. Okay, hope you can see my slides. And yes, my name is Elwin Huaman, and during this time I was an intern as a digital resource and web community, working with the LP and the team and Riathung, Maison, and Amanda mostly, and all the mentors as well. So it's a pleasure to now showcase what I've done together with all the members of ELP, what we have been working. So I just divided in 3 parts of this presentation. There is not such a video, but I have a couple of pictures that would like to share as well. So I will talk about me, about language resources, how it's organized in ELP, and the glottal logs and the glottal codes that are important for languages to be identified in the digital world. And yes. So in the first part, I want to talk about me. As you can see, this picture is from my hometown. I've been there as well also during my intern period. And yeah, as for instance, you can see this alpaca because I really, really love alpacas. And I wanted to also introduce myself as a person that is still a person and family that still breeds alpacas in the Andes of Peru, and was basically our main activity to preserve our languages. Because 100 years ago, we still exchange products with different communities, and this exchange of products was involved also alpaca meat, alpaca wool, llamas, and so on. And this helped us to preserve our language until nowadays. And nowadays it's mostly spoken in the Andes, mostly in the mountains, mostly in Chichat, but nothing formally is done for every specific variant of the Quechua language. But we still keep our languages, and we are still surviving, and we are still here. About me and my background, well, I'm a researcher and activist for under-resourced languages. I have projects working on the revitalization of the Puno Quechua language, but not only from my own community, but also for other Quechua languages, and also building some approaches to help other communities, under-resourced communities, underrepresented communities to also to preserve their language and knowledge and share it with the world. My name is basically Elwin Luis, and Huaman Quispe are my last names. And Huaman is written in a Spanish word and Quispe as well. But if we take it into the Quechua language, then we exchange the H and U for the W. And we have Huamon, which in Quechua means falcon, and Quispe in Quechua means free. So I could be a free falcon in my community. And also Huaman and Quispe are the most popular last names, one of the most popular last names in Peru. Also, I think in Bolivia as well, the Quispe is well known and well adopted. But nowadays we exchange with a Spanish alphabet, the Huaman Quispe. And my education and background, I'm a computer scientist and researcher nowadays, working mostly on building resources for underserved communities and also trying to revitalize the Puno Quichua language in my region in Peru. And my goal is to support the preservation and revitalization of under-resourced languages through the development of sustainable community-driven approaches. It's always because sometimes as a researcher and as a computer scientist, we forget that all the technologies and the tools should be developed for people, but also by the people, taking into account their ideas, their knowledge, and their ways of interacting, and not only trying to impose certain tools or approaches in this aspect. And my work at ELP, I did several things, and I learned so much and tons during this intern period. And I would like just to mention some of the things that would call your attention that are, for instance, the Music Mondays that you see at the ELP, social media. You can see we as interns also, we work on the aspect of the Music Mondays, creating video posts of different languages. In this case, I supported with a Quechua language. Then as an intern, one of my specific tasks was to work on the website part of the ELP, and mainly was to check in that website data, pages, content types, etc. appears and functions correctly. So for instance, if you look for a resource or a page, then you can find it and not confront with a 404 error not found or page not found, something like this. So we try to take care of all these details for the website. Then also we work in the word of the day, trying to support also this content for the social media and trying to also spread the word and the meaning of these words because are important for our communities. And it's a way of spreading also our culture and knowledge. Then also internally, as an intern, we have the opportunity to master several skills like presentations, providing sessions, and also guiding them. So one of the presentations that I managed to do is the Elan workshop for the language documentation training webinars. Then also we share some share sessions. For instance, I'm a computer scientist, so I have some skills that could be useful for the other interns. And also the other interns taught me several things that I didn't know that they were, so I was aware of. So, and also I had the opportunity to also to support in the Ready to Revitalize program. So this is wonderful because these all things help you a lot in growing, not only in your cultural contact with several communities and languages and persons, but it's also enriches you. For instance, for me, it was really very fulfilling to know that I can collaborate, I can support, and I can assist in all these activities and sessions. So I'm very grateful for that. So if you someday try to, if you want to be an intern also, you will have this chance and opportunity to support all the ELP's work in the background, and so it will be wonderful. Then I want to talk also about language resources. And this is basically my parents' farm, the picture. And we nowadays, we have partly modern or combined constructions, but still we have stones on the walls. We have some adobe in the walls as well. But this, for instance, are the yellow roof are the gardens for the for the winter time. And also nowadays we have these water supplies where we can have water for the whole day. And also with solar system, we have some small solar panels that illuminates the area where we step during the night because we don't have electricity. And now they are trying to connect. And this season, this picture was taken in during February. And in January, February, and March are the alpaca baby season. So you will see in those all in the Andes of Peru, all our alpaca babies are all around. So these are the pictures from my parents' family. So talking about language resources, language revitalization resources, and how to support them. So one of the things that I've doing during this intern period also was to basically curate these resources. So there are several resources that are cataloged in the ELP library of multimedia resources. And it's important to catalog them because it's really, really handy when you want to have material about revitalization, language work, dictionaries, articles, or any kind of language revitalization effort that you could have. Then you could have all the complete information or a summary of it so you can easily look into them. So for classifying these language resources, we were taking into account the resource type that it is, some description about these resources, like the one that you see in the right image. So for the young reader, children's literature in indigenous languages, or the greetings of the International Days of the World Indigenous Peoples, some events, and all these resources are cataloged and described internally. And for that, we have a description, we have a URL and location of where it's happening or where is the contact information for these resources or language revitalization resources, the languages that are described in these resources, there's some categories to identify the resources easily, and what is the type of audience that is targeting these resources. And also, since some of the resources are mostly are linking to articles, for instance, or videos or audios that are published on the web, then we also check the status of these articles, whether, for instance, there is a broken link or not, whether we need to update these resources or not. Then how you can support this task also, the ELP is simply just going to the website and you have a button saying submit, and then you can have a form that will guide you through the submission of these resources. You have content types, link, you need a title, description, and language, some categories for the resources, and yeah, and some tags about the resources and some contact information, and see if these resources have to be yours and you have to be the owner of these resources. Then we have some glottolog work as well that I've done, and which is assigning a unique identifier to languages. So as in the animal world, or for instance with alpacas, what we do is always alpacas, they recognize the babies. So there is some information that they recognize their babies. So it cannot happen, for instance, differently in a digital world, because we need identifier for a unique identifier for all the languages. This is the way that we are keeping information on the digital world nowadays. And the glottolog provides this comprehensive reference information for the worst languages, especially the lesser known languages, because they need an identifier. Otherwise, we cannot find information. And this information is provided for the language families. Also, they have a specific classification and bibliography where one can confirm that these languages belong to the specific classifications and so on. And of course, there's a decision tree or a decision procedure in order to add these languages. And what we do at ELP, it's basically describing these languages, the language metadata, language information, some resources about these languages, revitalization efforts, bibliography, and so on. And my task here was basically to, for instance, if the description of a language provides some specific if we are talking about the Cusco Quechua, and we are curating this data so we can provide you or the users, web users, with a curated information where you can find easily the description of the language, and with the identifier to the glottolog as well, where you can have all the resources and bibliography that supports that description of and the documentation of that specific language. And it was basically, since there are languages that are still documented, they are still in documentation process, so they need a specific code or language code. And this important part is that we need to update this also in our database, and this process need to be done carefully so we can provide you with the best and curated information for every language. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention. And this last picture, it's also, I love the podcast and I love the landscape of my town. I wanted to share it with you so you can have also a piece of my culture, which are alpacas, which are potatoes, which are quinoa, which are llamas, with you today. And hope you are motivated if in the future you think to support ELP as a volunteer or as an intern. Please don't hesitate to contact me for the experience if you have any doubt how you can support, or anyone at ELP will be happy to support you as well with this description of tasks. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Elwin. Wonderful. And last but definitely not least, we will be hearing from Maison. Let me share. Let's see, Maison, did your video ever start working?
Yeah, it's still not working, but I don't think it's going to stop us from doing what we're supposed to do. So can you hear me? Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Maison Ole Nkurrunah. It's unfortunate that you can't see my face. I really hoped and wished you could see me, but technology is doing its thing. It's been working all along, and then it just stops working when it's needed to. But I'm going to try and share my screen so that I can see if it works. Yeah. I hope you can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah. So thank you. So first of all, what I'm going to demonstrate here is the fact that languages continue to be resilient despite the changing times. So my name is Maison Ole Nkurrunah. I'm from the Maasai people of Kenya and Tanzania. And I have been an intern with ELP, a storytelling and communications intern alongside Riathung and Elwin. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to get to network with other youth or other people working on language revitalization. I'm a published poet and playwright, both in English and the Maasai language. And I got into language revitalization through ELP. It was just a meeting of fate because I just saw a post on social media. I've been searching for language revitalization programs. And then I don't remember if it's LinkedIn or Facebook that I saw ELP and I followed their page. Soon I saw, that's how I got to know ELP, how I got to get interviewed and apply for it and work with them. It has been a great ride. So I'll start my talk. I'm going to talk about the Maasai language, which is my first language. Because I also speak Swahili and English because these are the languages used in teaching in Kenyan schools. And the Maasai people who speak the Ma language are an Nilotic, semi-nomadic and pastoralist community residing on the southern plains of Kenya and northern Tanzania. They speak the Ma language, which is divided into several closely tied dialects that vary depending on several sections and subtribes. Some of the major tribes that speak the Ma language are the Samburu, who are found in the north, and the Jems, who the Maasai call Ilchamus, who are found in northern central parts of Kenya, very far from where the Maasai live, but it's a story of resilience too, because as you can see this map, this is a map I've been working on with a friend of mine who does mapping on where right now the Maasai people are positioned in Kenya. You can see there is on the top right corner of that map, there is where it shows Kenya and Tanzania, and then how the Maasai are placed on both countries. So I come just below, near the border of Kenya and Tanzania. That's where I come from. A small town called Narok. Narok is anglicized from Enkare Narok, which means black waters. There's a river called Enkare Narok. So I just wanted you to see how the Maasai people are placed. And then the Maasai language, just like any other indigenous language the world over, is not just a means of communication. It is a repository of environmental and biocultural wisdom that integrates with livelihood systems that have mutual relationships with land management and the environment. When I mention land management and environment, it's key to what I'm going to talk about on how language works in my community. So the first part is on ancient wisdom. There are three photos on that slide. The first photo is Ole Ngoti. Ole Ngoti is what you'd call a bonfire. This was a position in the evening for interaction between men and boys. The second picture is called Enkema. This is basically the kitchen, the Maasai kitchen. That's the mother and the kids while they're still young, all of them, both sexes. And the second one is called Enkitagata. Enkitagata is just the Maasai home was built in a way that the houses were in a circular manner, and then the cattle kraal was in the middle, and then there were small spaces in front of the houses where once the cattle are off to the fields, which men and boys will do the herding, women are left at home doing other jobs at home, like beading and taking care of smaller kids. At the Nkitagata is where older girls were taught. This is where language was passed. This is where things were taught to the girls by the mothers. And Kema, which is the middle photo you can see there, is during the evening, stories were told. What you need to really see here is that the mother, in this case, the Maasai community, is the most fundamental storyteller. Most of the stories Maasai children know through their language are from their mothers. And Ole Ngoti just comes in when boys are grown. Now they can see men, and their language here was really important because folk tales, historical tales of mythology from the community were told in these settings. So it's important to know this structure of the Maasai community because it no longer exists. So these are the kind of things that were taught that are no longer there in the Maasai language. They are there, but they are no longer taught because they're not in schools. And the reason I'm talking about them is because ELP has given me that platform to relearn them through elders and maybe get to publish these things so that future generations of Maasai people can get to study their language in this language that they can understand now, English. So what you can see there is the Maasai had a calendar, a seasonal calendar. I'm trying to make it more understandable because they had 12 seasons in 1 year. An year was called Olari. Olari also means rain because the Maasai, when the rain starts is when their year starts because everything good comes with rain for them. Cattle get pasture, people get water. So you'll see that everything is associated with having rain or not having rain, seasons. So the first season of the year, which I'd say is around January, because in this place where we are at, that's when it is called Olodalo, which is characterized by the hot sun, clear skies, drying up of water sources and streams, just like the normal January in East Africa. And then there is Arat, which is the second season of the year. Water sources dry up, are still dry, leads to pastures not being sufficient, and people start moving in search of pastures. The other season is called Ole Nkurrunah, which is the start of rains, torrential rains. That's around March. And then there is Ole Nkurrunah. Ole Nkurrunah is heavy rainfall, very heavy rainfall, and it's very dark. There are no, the reason Ole Nkurrunah is the stars when they get lost totally and we can't see them. And then the next season is called Olodoyori Nkurrunah, which is the stars going down, which means the rains are, ending. And then there is Kujo Rock. The rains are over now, and certain families in all the 5 clans, Maasai have 5 clans across all the sections, do their circumcision ceremonies at this particular time of year. And then there is Olapa Lenki Jape, which is a very cold time. That is June, July, around there. It's very cold. And at this time is when initiation ceremonies take place, and some of the older children graduate to Moranhood, which is the warrior system of the community. And then the other season is Oloro Renkatambo, which is when areas that were preserved during the rain season are now allowed, people are allowed to use them as pastures. Bear with me. So there are 12. So the other one is called Ntungus, which is the start of the second dry season. That is around September. And the movement continues to seek pasture. People move to higher places. And then just before they leave, they burn the grasses in these areas that they get to us, so that kill pests and also help the pastures regrow fresh. And the next season is called Poshoka. The people are still on the move seeking pastures and water. That is around October, and especially in the highlands. So they move to the highlands at this particular time of year. And then there is Oloserkop, which is the start of very short rains. And people start coming back home where they moved from. And then there is Oloitushol and Dapan, which is the close of the seasonal year. During this time of year, other initiation ceremonies like the removal of the incisors of children was done, because they said they healed at that time. Scarification was done, body tattoos and piercings. So these are things that me being with ELP has helped me collect through learning from elders. So the reason why I'm talking about them is because I didn't know them before, but I had to go get to know them. So that's why I'm showing them practically. Another thing that I got to learn is the star law of the Maasai people. The Maasai people, this is something I'm trying to continue learning, because it's very, very deep. If you can see that picture at the corner there, a lady has a beautiful headpiece, and there is a star, a kind of star, like a cross. That is the morning star, which according to science is Venus, or scientists will argue, but the Maasai, the Samburu, and the Gems had already knowledge of the stars. They had names for these different stars, and it took me really a while to gather the names, the actual names. I had to ask some people who have already been working on them. And the morning star, or Olagra Lesiran, was to show that the morning has come. It's going to be a great day. So when you put it on your face, like the lady in that photo, the face, we call the face Omom. This is where language comes in. Omom and Komom. Omom also means luck. So when you put that star on your face, it shows that on Komom, and you'll get mom, you'll get luck. So you'll be lucky in whatever you do. So the star law of the Maasai people was really deep. I got to learn a lot about it through getting to talk to people who know about the star law, and referencing with modern star, how the stars are. And you can see there, I got to know that Mars is Olagronyogie, the red star. It's, for them, planets and the stars are all the same because, yeah, of being up there. And all those others, Olagra Lonkishu, which is the star of the kettle, is Sirius. Olagra Lolkidongoi, which is a comet. Ngogwa, Quechua is the Pleiades, which I talked about because they were mentioned in two different seasons to signify the start of one season and the end of another season. And then Ole Nkurrunah, which is the Alcyon. So this I'm just showing practically how learning my language through this internship has been things that I have learned. This is age-old wisdom that is getting lost, that is not taught in schools, that you can only get from older generations. So the next slide is I'm just giving a practical explanation of how language has changed and how language was used to define things before. Land, as we know it, in the Ma language, a specific name for land, as we know it, does not really exist. We use different terms such as enkop, which means place. It is not definite. Or enkuluponi, which means soil, define land. We mostly use enkop, which means place. This is because land ownership is not something that existed, hence not terminology for it was required. We didn't require to name land because no one owned land. The land was owned by the entire community. So this is just an example of things that we had to learn, that land has a name and land can be owned. Language changed. English has a name for land, Swahili has a name for land, but the Maasai did not have a name for land. And this really made me think, because I think language after colonization changed a lot of things for us, because everyone was told now you can live here, this is where you live. The Maasai, for example, were put in reserves by the British and they were locked from moving, and they are a pastoral community. They had to move to seek pastures in higher areas. But the higher areas, which are the highlands, were taken over by the colonial settlers. So they were restricted to a particular area, forced to destock. But language first was used, make sure that they stay in one place. You own this land, now you stay here. So language is just other things that really mattered, that language shows that have been lost, are water areas. Water areas were owned by community. People would not own rivers. People would not own streams. These were owned by the community. Everyone could use them, but there were also rules and regulations that dictated how they were used, so that to avoid someone being dictatorial on a particular part of a water area. These natural resources belonged to the community, not an individual. But after these other languages were introduced, people now own rivers run through people's land, and you can't duplicate it, So these are just examples of things that I have learned through language revitalization that ELP has, facilitated me to do. The next thing I'll talk about is the resilience. I've talked about the age-old wisdom that we've lost and we are trying to revitalize, and the things that show how language has been very resilient. Unlike in a country like Tanzania, in Kenya, the constitution allows for language, indigenous language radios. We can have tribal radios where the community can use their language. Right now, we have 3 main community radios that operate, and they use the Maasai language. So I think this is a show of resilience for the language, because when we go to schools, we don't get to learn our language. You only get to learn your language at home with your mother if they speak the language, with your father if they speak the language. Then you go to school, and then they totally stop you from learning. And if you went to boarding school like I did, there's something called a disc where you can even stay for 3 months without speaking your language because you'll be punished. So radio is something that has really, really shown how our languages can be resilient, because once people listen, even in towns who are of our origin, they get to learn the language through listening. I think listening is really important to language continuing. Another way in which these languages have been, or my skills from ELP, the ELP internship, have helped me, is in developing new systems for ensuring that the language continues, like podcasting, doing a podcast that speaks mainly on the things I've been talking about that are getting lost. encouraging people to learn more about the language so that they don't lose it. We also do meetups. I have people and a community-based organization that is interested now more in language revitalization. So we can get people together of this particular language, and they speak that language, they do music from that language, they do poetry from that language. We can also do cross-generational transfer of language, where I can go to schools, high schools and primary schools where language is not, Maasai language is not. And through this internship, I've also been writing stories. I'm a writer, basically. So I also don't just write for the Maasai people. I've done stories for the Gig people who are just around my community. Doing research for other communities that their languages are endangered, like the Yaku community who are in northern Kenya, Sengwer community. There are like 5 communities that are really have their languages being endangered. And this internship has really opened me up with to a network of resources and meeting new people who are working with their languages and trying to revitalize their languages. And another show of resilience in this language is, if you've ever been to Kenya, the capital city of Kenya is Nairobi. Nairobi is a Maasai word. It's Nkare Nairobi. And almost so many towns in Kenya that Maasais don't even live there have the name from the Maasai community. And it's the same down in Tanzania. Like 2 of the major cities of, there are, I think, 5 cities now in Kenya, 2 are, they have Maasai names, but the Maasais don't live there because they were pushed from there. But their language remains. And you can find them anglicized or changed, but they still remain Maasai. So this is, and other things you'll also see how language is strong and resilient is how the Maasai have named so many of the mountains in Kenya and in Tanzania, like Mount Kilimanjaro. The Maasai name is Oldonyo Oibor, which is the white mountain because of the snow at the top of it. Mount Kenya, where Maasai don't live, they call it Oldonyo Kiri, and the 3 main peaks have Maasai names named after Maasai seers that are documented. The Maasai don't live there, which means in their movement to search for pastures, this is now where you get how language has been very resilient. While they were moving during the different seasons, they named places, and those names stuck with them to this moment. And I think I'll stop there because the fact that I didn't have a video is now confusing me more. So thank you so much. Ashe Oleng.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maison. And we have a few minutes now for any questions or comments. I'm seeing so many wonderful supportive comments in the chat. So if anyone would like to ask questions or express your gratitude to the interns, feel free to put it in the chat or turn on your microphone.
I can go. Hello, everyone. Just a comment. I hope I'm not lost. Just a comment that the interns did a very good work, very amazing. They're so creative. And I also felt so happy when I heard that Maison also did a little bit of research on Ogiek language, where I'm part of the community. Thank you, thank you so much.
Can I? Yeah, thank you all. Thank you guys. This is wonderful. So great to hear your stories and to learn so much from all what you've been doing. I just wanted to ask, I mean, any of you, since you've had the opportunity to go back to your community and to do this wonderful revitalization work, do you see any signs of young people in the communities taking up, and being interested in the languages and cultures that you are trying to revitalize? Any of you can answer.
Hey, PS. Sorry if I've breached protocol, but I just wanted to chip in that while working on a story about the Ogier community, I met a young champion. He will be covered on ELP's website. His name is Tyson Otuma, and so many other younger Ogier people who are really working towards revitalizing their language. So yes, there is a really positive way in which the younger people who didn't know the language growing up are trying to take up revitalization of their own language.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to add to your question, to Piu's question. I think what I see now is with the use of social media and AI being, globally accessible with the internet. I mean, young people are trying to revive folklores, traditions, custom by reenacting them in their own communities. So I'm, following up on these communities and trying to connect with young people who are trying to reach out to others or preserve, a part of the culture through storytelling or enactment of traditional rituals. So things are coming up, but again, the question of how you use AI, that's also been a question I've been tackling with. But I'm so encouraged to speak, and it also inspires me other people trying to do that in their own ways and time with the limited resource that they have. Yeah.
Thank you, Riathung.
Maybe I can add something small here. Yes, I think in the jungle community, at least in the Quechua part of Peru, I think young people are starting to, as Riathung said, more connecting with social media. But I'm always pushing them a little bit more into, for instance, producing some resources, written resources, because sometimes it's just guided by music, because music are in all languages, but we don't read and we don't write in our language. So this is pity. So I'm always pushing them to write something, some small story, or read some text that is in Quechua language, which is still hard, but it's somehow I'm contributing on that as well, on that aspect.
Thank you, Pius. That's a lovely question. I think we're a little over time, but let's make time for one more question if anyone has some. All right. Well, if not, I just want to reiterate, thank you all for these wonderfully supportive and appreciative comments in the chat. We can really feel all of your support and love from here. And I just want to echo everything that you all are saying, that these interns have done incredible work over the last few months in their time at ELP, but all of their work and their accomplishments and their skills go far before their time with us and will continue long after this internship. And we're so excited to see what each of them go on to do with their communities, their languages, their cultures, and connecting with other folks all over the world. And so if any of you would like to get in touch with the interns, please feel free to share your emails in the chat. And again, we thank you all so much for being here today to applaud and celebrate these three amazing folks and everything they've done in their time here. So thank you all. And again, we want to thank each of the interns for their dedication, their brilliance, their commitment, and just being wonderful people to work with over the last few months. Thank you, Riathung. Thank you, Elwin. Thank you, Maison. It has been such a joy. And thank you all for being here with us today. We hope to see you in the future at other ELP events. And we wish you all a really happy, healthy, safe weekend. Thank you, everyone. Take care.